Hello, everybody. My name is Ryan Koki of the Seahawk Recap Show, and welcome to another Seahawk Game Recap video. Seahawks versus the Buffalo Bills for Week 8. Oh man, that was a shellacking, I must say. Biggest blowout of the season, and really, I think one of the worst games at home the Seahawks could have possibly had. I'm very disappointed, so I'm going to be a little bit low energy because there's not much positives I can take from this game, but I'm just here to recap it for you guys. So before I ramble on a little too much, let's get into recapping it. If you like this video, please consider giving it a like. It helps me know if I'm doing a good job with these videos or not. And if you'd like to see any more future Seahawks content from this channel, please consider subscribing. That would be greatly appreciated. But let's get to the game summary. Bills win 3-1 to the Seahawks 10. And let's start off with the Seattle Seahawks because they were the home team. So the Seahawks ended the day with 233 total yards, 201 passing yards, 32 rushing yards, 5 yards per play, 17 first downs. They went 1 for 7 on third down, went 0 for 1 on fourth down, had 47 total plays, 1 sack allowed, 4 punts, 11 penalties for 82 yards given up, 1 fumble lost, 1 interception thrown, and the Seahawks had 21 minutes and 57 seconds of possession time. For the Buffalo Bills, they had 445 total yards, 281 passing yards, 164 rushing yards, averaged 6.4 yards per play, had 28 first downs. They went 7 for 15 on third down, went 1 for 1 on fourth down, had 69 total plays, 1 sack allowed, 3 punts, 13 penalties for 85 yards given up, 0 fumbles lost, 1 interception thrown, and had 38 minutes and 3 seconds of possession time. Just a really clean performance and a dominant win. But let's get to Ryan's focus players and let's talk about Geno Smith for a second. 21 for 29, 212 passing yards, 0 touchdowns. The 1 interception by, I believe his name was Austin Johnson, a D lineman. And this was just late in the game. I believe it was the fourth quarter, if I remember correctly. And it was just a tip ball, picked off pass. And, you know, the game was already kind of out of reach at that point. I believe it was 28 to 10. So it was just, trying to get his troops back up there and trying to do something. But unfortunately, just it got intercepted. And for Geno Smith, man, I don't really blame him for this. Him losing his cool is obviously not cool. Him, you know, getting in people's faces, and I understand tempers flare high, and you're without your best wide receiver, but you kind of got to be that kind of leader. You've got the C on your chest, and you're the quarterback of this team, so you do need to play better. But I don't think you can kind of blame this game on Geno Smith. I think you need to really blame it on his protection detail and a little bit on the defense as well. But let's get to Kenneth Walker, 9 carries, 12 yards, averaged 1.3 yards per reception, 0 touchdowns, had 3 receptions for 44 yards, 8.2 yards per reception, and 0 touchdowns. And man, Kenneth Walker getting 9 carries and only 12 yards, unacceptable. And here's the reason why they had to abandon basically the run game. They just couldn't get it going against a Bills front that was just dominant all game long. But again, that's the thing with this offense is that if Kenneth Walker can get going, if the offensive line plays well, we get wins, and we saw that last week against the Falcons. He had a really decent game, and even in the passing game, he was used there, and he's an explosive runner, and I want to see him do well especially in the run game, because the Seahawks need balance of run pass. And unfortunately, that just wasn't there today. I believe he had 2 carries for 1 yard in the first half. So that needs to be addressed. You need to get the ball in Kenneth Walker's hands a lot earlier, even if you're going up against a strong D line. But let's get to wide receiver. And the only wide receiver that I really saw out there today was Jackson Smith-Njigba. 6 receptions, 69 yards, averaged 11.5 yards per reception, had 0 touchdowns. And man, Tyler Lockett was getting blanketed. He was very quiet in this game. And of course, no DK Metcalf. And when you're without your best wide receiver, that's really hard to do, and play against and play with, but you really need to step up. And at least Jackson Smith-Njigba tried all he could, but he's only one guy. Our Lockett needs to be held a little bit more accountable for this. He needs to get open and try and help Gino, and the whole offense just needs to do better. But I digress. Let's get to the Seahawks defense, and let's get to D lineman Byron Murphy. 3 solo tackles, 1 assisted, 0 sacks, 0 forced fumbles. And man, Byron Murphy, despite having him back and despite how well he's been playing, this whole D line just couldn't get to James Cook, couldn't stop him on the ground, and it really sucks because the Bills dominated this game in time of possession, and that's why they led and kept the lead in this game to win this. And man, the D line trying to do all they can. Byron Murphy trying to do all he can as a big run stopper, and he just couldn't. But I think Byron Murphy had an okay game. I just wish he could have gotten more pressure on Josh Allen. And let's get to the one bright spot that I found on this DB secondary. It's Josh Jobs, the cornerback brought up from the practice squad. 5 solo tackles, 2 assisted, 0 sacks, the 1 interception, ending Josh Allen's 301 pass attempts without an interception this season. And man, Josh Jobs takes the pass, just sees where Josh Allen's going with it in the second quarter, I believe, and he undercuts Amari Cooper, sits there, grabs the pass, returns it to the 5 yard line, doesn't get in the end zone, but puts the team up to score. And unfortunately, the offense just couldn't get it done. It's one of those things. Josh Jobs is a guy that got burnt a lot in this game by Khalil Shakir for, I believe it was Khalil Shakir had 10 receptions for like 100 yards or something like that. So for a guy like Josh Jobs to come up there from the practice squad and play, he's not supposed to be on the main roster. We all know that. But I think he had one good play in there for him, and he did make some tackles in there as well. So decent game from Josh Jobe. And despite everything, whether if they won this game or not, I was still going to talk about linebacker Ernest Jones, the fourth, the newest addition to this Seahawks team. 7 solo tackles, 9 assisted, 0 sacks, 0 interceptions. And there's the middle linebacker of the future, Ernest Jones. Terrell Dotson moves over to weak side where Jerome Baker was originally playing. And Ernest Jones, again, a big tackler in this game, trying to stop James Cook and trying to help this run defense. Although James Cook is a very talented running back. So I'm giving Ernest Jones a bit of a mulligan here because he's only been here for what, 3 days, 4 days in this system. So it's going to take him a bit to adjust. I hope he has a better game against the Rams next week. Let's get to the Buffalo Bills and let's get to Josh Allen. 24 for 34, 283 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, the 1 interception. And Josh Allen coming to this game, coming into the season, really, he was really good. 12 passing touchdowns and no interceptions before this game. But man, Josh Allen, a guy that takes some merry man of wide receiver talent and makes it look extremely good. He's a terrific passer, very sharp, is able to read and make throws that a lot of quarterbacks just can't make. Some of his deep bombs are just amazingly placed, and it's a really good game from Josh Allen. I understand why he was tearing up this Seahawks team in the second half. It was just a clinic from there. But let's get to running back James Cook, 17 carries, 111 yards, averaged 6.5 yards per carry for 2 touchdowns. And Tom Brady was on this broadcast tonight, and he was saying how James Cook is called a gasher running back, chewing up huge amounts of yardage, is very physical, is very tough to bring down, and he proved it here. And when other teams are facing against the Seahawks, they're going to run it down the Seahawks' throat because the Seahawks have had an issue, not just this season, but even last season too, of stopping the run, and it continues to be a problem here. And James Cook takes advantage of it with a really good game from him. And let's get to wide receiver Keon Coleman, 5 receptions, 70 yards, averaged 14 yards per reception, had the 1 touchdown, one-handed grab from Keon Coleman in, I believe, the first quarter of the game. And Keon Coleman, man, this second round pick out of Florida State is someone else. He's extremely athletic. And the thing is, I'm not a Buffalo Bills fan, so I didn't get to see some of his ability. And in week 8, he really showed off his athleticism. He's a really athletic, aggressive wide receiver, not only in pass blocking, but he's also an aggressive wide receiver when it comes to trying to grab those contested catches. And he beat Rick Woolen in the end zone, one of our best coverage corners. So good game from the rookie from Florida State. And let's get to the big problem. It was the Buffalo Bills defense, the D line, and let's highlight Greg Rousseau, 3 solo tackles, 1 assisted, 0 sacks, 0 forced fumbles. But the reason why I'm highlighting Greg Rousseau is not because of his tackling ability, because he was everywhere on the field this game, really making him a name for himself on the right edge, but he was also very disruptive and batting down passes. The Seahawks, in their first 2 drives of the game, had 3 and outs. And Greg Rousseau was one of the reasons they had those 2 3 and outs because he was batting passes at the line. He was getting pressure on Geno Smith. He was making it really uncomfortable for Geno to set his feet in this game. And that's what having a good D line does. When you have guys like Ed Oliver at your nose and you have guys like Greg Rousseau off the edge, you're going to have issues. And the Seahawks had them there. So good game from Greg Rousseau. Let's get to CB. Rasul Douglas, 5 solo tackles, 1 assisted, 0 sacks, 0 interceptions. Could have had a pick in the fourth quarter against Geno Smith. He had just dropped it. But Rasul Douglas, man, he has been a corner who is usually in the nickel, and he's a very good coverage corner, but he's also a very good tackler and stopping Kenneth Walker on some of those plays. He was blanketing Tyler Lockett for, I believe, the majority of the game. That's why we didn't see much of Tyler Lockett, only getting 3 targets because of a guy like Rasul Douglas, who really showed out today. And it was a good game from him. Let's talk about linebacker Balin Spector, 3 solo tackles, 2 assisted, 0 sacks, 0 interceptions. And the reason why this linebacking core is so successful is because they just have to wait for the defensive line of the Buffalo Bills to make quarterbacks uncomfortable. And Balin Spector just has to sit there and make tackles in the middle of the field, stop the run, which he did very effectively. He made some good tackles and broke up some big passes from Jackson Smith and Jigba in this game I saw. So it was a pretty well-rounded game from the linebacker. Ryan's final thoughts and what went well. The Josh Jobe pick was really good. Just wish it could have translated into points. And that's basically all that went well in this game, I feel, because it's a blowout, man. It's 31-10. I don't really see how this was a really good game, and that's a lot of doom and gloom, but it just happens for a blowout like this. What to improve on? This is a humiliating loss. The miscues in the first half, especially from Connor Williams. Connor Williams sailing the ball over Gino's head, killed their third drive of the game. That could have been a touchdown to tie it up 7-7, but unfortunately, it was just tossed way over his head. And I understand rainy conditions, that's an issue, but you can't be throwing out of your quarterback's head and allowing it to just be a field goal in the end. That's what costs you. And then not converting on the Josh Jobs interception. Again, Connor Williams on the fourth and goal play stepped on Gino's foot, and Gino ultimately fell down, and that resulted in no points. That resulted in a turnover on downs, and the Seahawks then ended up being down um, 14-3 at the half, and the Seahawks just melted from there. The Buffalo Bills woke up and took control of the game. Those miscues need to be cleaned up. I'm not even joking. That should not happen. There's no reason why the defense in that first half should not be leading going into that third quarter, because again, just issues with the offense. It's just a really big issue. Overall, Seahawks are 4-4 to start off the season. Take lessons from this game and make sure this kind of game does not happen again. This was not playing down to your competition, but it was just a lot of things. A lot of things. Not only the penalties, but also the miscues that hurt you, self-inflicted wounds, and that's happened a lot this season. Remember back in the Giants game, it's what made you lose that game as well. So it just needs to be cleaned up. And you need to show up next week against the LA Rams, because this NFC West division, this divisional game, is a must win because of how tight the NFC West is. The Arizona Cardinals leapfrogged us for the first place in the NFC West. We need to win this game. This game is a must win next week on November 3rd. For the Buffalo Bills, dominant on all sides of the field today. You guys really showed up in that second half to make sure that the Seahawks couldn't come back. You played in front the entire game and never looked back. A good game from you guys. Enjoy your 6-2 record. And oh man, I'm sorry. It's a little bit of the doom and gloom kind of episode, but there's not much that I can take away from this game right now that will make me even remotely happy. But anyways, guys, that is it for this Seahawk game recap. I want to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. How are you feeling about this loss? Let's see if the Seahawks can get back to 5-4 next week against the LA Rams and take over first place once again in the NFC West. Anyways, guys, I'll see you guys in the next video. The Hawks go, and take care of yourselves. Enjoy the rest of your week.